And having gone forth, he dwells restrained by the restraint of the rules, persisting in right behavior, seeing danger in the slightest faults, observing the commitments he has taken on regarding body, deed, and word, devoted to the skilled and purified life, perfected in morality with the sense doors guarded, and skilled in mindful awareness and content. And how, sire, is a monk perfected in morality? Abandoning the taking of life, he dwells refraining from taking life, without stick or sword, scrupulous, compassionate, trembling for the welfare of all living beings. Thus he is accomplished in morality, abandoning the taking of what is given, abandoning unchastity, etc., and so on, through the 3 sections on morality as in Sutta 1, verses 1.8 to 1.27. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood. Thus he is perfected in morality. Stop here for a moment. So here is going through all the different types of sila that is practiced when a person renounces. Last night we just heard basically the 7 precepts, then went on to the 10 precepts, then went on to not practicing the shaman practices, not making predictions, and all the different types of wrong livelihood for a renunciant. He does not do all that. And then, sire, that monk who is perfected in morality sees no danger from any side owing to his being restrained by morality. Just as a duly anointed Katya king, having conquered his enemies, by that very fact sees no danger from any side. So the monk, on account of his morality, sees no danger anywhere. He experiences in himself the blameless bliss that comes from maintaining this Aryan morality. In this way, sire, he is perfected in morality. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that if a monk keeps his sila, his moral conduct purely, then he is blameless, totally blameless. He does not see any danger. Nobody can fault him. So this is the first thing that a person having gone forth has to practice. There are some people who come into the homeless life. They wear the robe, but they don't follow a teacher. So if they don't follow a teacher, or at least study the suttas and the Vinaya, then they don't know what is the sila they are expected to practice, and a lot of them misconduct themselves, so they get blamed, and so many people can blame them, but if a person his moral conduct is perfect, then there's no danger, nobody can fault him. And how, sire, is he a guardian of the sense doors? Here a monk, on seeing a visible object with the eye, does not grasp at its major signs or secondary characteristics, because greed and sorrow, evil unskilled states, would overwhelm him if he dwelt, leaving his eye faculty unguarded. So he practices guarding it. He protects the eye faculty, develops restraint of the eye faculty. Similarly, on hearing a sound with the ear, smelling an odor with the nose, tasting a flavor with the tongue, feeling an object with the body, or thinking a thought with the mind, he does not grasp at its major signs or secondary characteristics. He develops restraint of the mind faculty. He experiences within himself the blameless bliss that comes from maintaining this Aryan guarding of the faculties. In this way, sire, a monk is a guardian of the sense doors. Stop here for a moment. So this is a second thing a monk has to practice, to guard the sense doors, not to pay attention too much to the 6 sense, external sense objects of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts. Because the Buddha says this is Mara's ground, Satan's ground. Satan or Mara is trying to catch us with the bait of beautiful sights, nice sounds, fragrant odors, good taste, nice touch, and nice things to think about, nice thoughts. So if we start enjoying these things, then we get craving will arise, and we get caught by Mara. So because of that, the Buddha says that we should practice restraint. Here you see here, because greed Greed and sorrow, evil, unskilled states would overwhelm him if he dwelt, leaving the faculties unguarded. So if a monk does not guard his sense faculties, either he becomes greedy for seeing, hearing, etc., or if he cannot satisfy what he wants to see and hear and smell and taste, etc., then sorrow would arise, and various kinds of evil, unskilled states, jealousy, selfishness, etc. And then we come to the third one. And how, sire, is a monk accomplished in mindfulness and clear awareness? Here a monk acts with clear awareness in going forth and back, in looking ahead or behind him, in bending and stretching, in wearing his outer and inner robe, and carrying his bowl, in eating, drinking, chewing and swallowing, in evacuating and urinating, in walking, standing, sitting, lying down, in waking, in speaking and in keeping silent. He acts with clear awareness. In this way, a monk is accomplished in mindfulness and clear awareness. Stop here for a moment. This mindfulness and clear awareness here is, you notice, whatever he does, he's mindful. And this is not yet meditation, this is just basic mindfulness. We haven't come to the meditation part yet. A lot of people, they think this is meditation. Actually, for a lot of people, I notice that they come to this monastery, and this monastery, being a forest monastery, sometimes you hear this nice sounds of birds or some animal cries and all that. Sometimes I ask people, have you heard this? And they say no. That shows their mind is somewhere else. We are so used to using our mind, thinking about this, thinking of that, and that when you come here, your mind is still running all over the place, and this kind of sounds you don't hear. But when a monk stays in the forest long enough, and then he begins to notice all these things. Why? Partly because his mind doesn't go out. He stays in a quiet, secluded place. He doesn't think about seeing what the latest film shows in town, or astro, or emails and all that. So the mind calms down naturally. That's why it's very conducive if a person wants to practice the holy life, to stay in a quiet, secluded place. And how is a monk contented? Here a monk is satisfied with a robe to protect his body, with arms to satisfy his stomach, and having accepted sufficient, he goes on his way. Just as a bird with wings flies hither and thither, burdened by nothing but its wings, so he is satisfied. In this way, sire, a monk is contented. Sorry for a moment. So here, a monk practices contentment, doesn't want more than the necessities for living. Then he, equipped with this Aryan morality, with this Aryan restraint of the senses, with this Aryan contentment, finds a solitary lodging at the root of a forest tree, in a mountain, cave or gorge, a charnel ground, a jungle thicket, or in the open air, on a heap of straw. Stop here for a moment. So this is the fifth thing he practices, which is seclusion, solitary lodging. Then having eaten after his return from the alms round, he sits down cross-legged, holding his body erect, and concentrates on keeping mindfulness established before him. Abandoning worldly desires, he dwells with a mind freed from worldly desires, and his mind is purified of them. Abandoning ill will and hatred, and by compassionate love for the welfare of all living beings, his mind is purified of ill will and hatred. Abandoning sloth and torpor, perceiving light, mindful and clearly aware, his mind is purified of sloth and torpor. Abandoning worry and flurry, and with an inwardly calm mind, his heart is purified of worry and flurry. Abandoning doubt, he dwells with doubt left behind, without uncertainty as to what things are wholesome. His mind is purified of doubt. Just as a man who had taken a loan to develop his business, and whose business had prospered, might pay off his old debts, and with what was left over could support a wife, might think, before this I developed my business by borrowing, but now it has prospered, etc. And he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man was ill, suffering, terribly sick, with no appetite and weak in body, might after a time recover and regain his appetite and bodily strength, and he might think, before this I was ill, etc., and he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man might be bound in prison, and after a time he might be freed from his bonds without any loss, with no deduction from his possessions. He might think, before this I was in prison, etc., and he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man might be a slave, not his own master, dependent on another, unable to go where he liked, and after some time he might be freed from slavery, able to go where he liked, might think, before this I was a slave, etc., and he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man laden with goods and wealth might go on a long journey through the desert where food was scarce and danger abounded, and after a time he would get through the desert and arrive safe and sound at the edge of a village, might think, before this I was in danger, now I am safe at the edge of a village, and he would rejoice and be glad about that. As long as a monk does not perceive the disappearance of the 5 hindrances in himself, he feels as if in death, in sickness, in bonds, in slavery, on a desert journey. But when he perceives the disappearance of the 5 hindrances in himself, it is as if he were freed from death, from sickness, from bonds, from slavery, from the perils of the desert. Okay, we stop here for a moment. So here is the meditation part. So here the Buddha says, a monk wants to practice meditation. He goes to a secluded place, an aranya, and he sits down cross-legged and concentrates on keeping mindfulness established before him. This is satipatthana. For example, mindfulness of the breath. And then he keeps meditating, and slowly the 5 hindrances are abandoned. So you look at all these similes given by the Buddha, it is meant to convey that this abandonment of the hindrances are quite permanent. Not like some people say that you only abandon the 5 hindrances when you are in jhana. But when you come out of jhana, the hindrances come back. This is not true. One thing you must know, the 5 hindrances are things that obsess your mind. They are so strong. They are called 5 hindrances because they hinder you from thinking straight, from thinking clearly, so that you don't have the higher wisdom. So because they are strong, they are called hindrances. So when the hindrances are abandoned, it does not mean that they disappear entirely. There is still some of it left, but they are not strong. And because they are not strong, they are not strong enough to obsess your mind. They are not called hindrances. The difference, for example, with an arahant is that the roots have been plucked out. For an arahant, the roots have been plucked out. So even the little amount of hindrance is not there. But for a person who has not yet become an arahant, the roots of these 5 hindrances are still there. But because they are like lalang, when lalang is the grass is tall, and they obstruct us from walking properly. But when you cut it down, for example, to 1 inch or 2 inch, they don't obstruct you anymore, even though they are there, but they're very little. So in the same way, these 5 hindrances, when a person attains the jhanas, they are cut away. That's why you see in this paragraph 74, he says, as long as a monk does not perceive the disappearance of the 5 hindrances in himself, so these 5 hindrances disappear. That means they are no more hindrance. Also you notice in paragraph 68, when a person just about to enter the first jhana, he is in that state, what later books call the threshold concentration or assess concentration. Upachara samadhi, that's the term that was coined later. You find when a person attains that state, you see they are perceiving light, mindful and clearly aware. So he experiences light, and this light wells up from within his body, from within his heart, because the light wells up from within. So some people say the heart is in the chest. The heart is in the chest, but really the heart or the mind is everywhere. The whole world is the mind. So now we come to paragraph 75. And when he knows that these 5 hindrances have left him, gladness arises in him. From gladness comes delight. from the delight in his mind, his body is tranquilized. And with a tranquil body, he feels joy. And with joy, his mind is concentrated. Delight is piti, and joy is sukha. Being thus detached from sense desires, detached from unwholesome states, he enters and remains in the first jhana, which is with, here it says thinking and pondering, but I think a better translation, which is with thought directed and thought sustained, born of detachment, filled with delight and joy. And with this delight and joy, born of detachment, he so suffuses, drenches, fills and irradiates his body that there is no spot in his entire body that is untouched by this delight and joy born of detachment. Just as a skilled bathman or his assistant, kneading the soap powder which he has sprinkled with water, forms from it in a metal dish a soft lump, so that the ball of soap powder becomes one oleaginous mass, bound with oil so that nothing escapes. So this monk suffuses, drenches, fills and irradiates his body so that no spot remains untouched. This, sire, is a fruit of the homeless life, visible here and now, that is more excellent and perfect than the former ones. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, you notice the Buddha describes the first jhana, and also the Buddha is telling us how to practice this first jhana. When this state of first jhana arises, the Buddha says to make the piti and sukha fill the whole body, so that there's no part of the body that does not experience this piti and sukha. So you find in the sutta there's a lot of practical instructions given by the Buddha. There's no need to look for other teachers. The Buddha has said, later we'll find in Sutta Digha Nikaya, Sutta 29, the Buddha says his teachings are utterly pure, perfect and complete. And if you think you want to add to his words, you don't understand the Dhamma. If you think you want to subtract from his words, also you don't understand the Dhamma. So a lot of people, because you don't understand the Buddha's Dhamma, you go around looking here and there for a famous teacher. You don't need to do that. The Buddha says all his Dhamma in the suttas is complete and perfect. No need to add to his words. Again, a monk, with the subsiding of thinking and pondering, or thought directed and sustained, by gaining inner tranquility and oneness of mind, enters and remains in the second jhana, which is without thinking and pondering, born of concentration, filled with delight and joy. And with this delight and joy born of concentration, he so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. Just as a lake fed by a spring, with no inflow from east, west, north or south, where the rain god sends moderate showers from time to time. The water welling up from below, mingling with cool water, would suffuse, fill and irradiate that cool water, so that no part of the pool was untouched by it. So with this delight and joy born of concentration, he so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. This, sire, is a fruit more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Again, a monk with the fading away of delight remains imperturbable, mindful and clearly aware, and experiences in himself that joy of which the noble ones say, "Happy is he who dwells with equanimity and mindfulness," and he enters and remains in the third jhana. And with this joy devoid of delight, he so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. Just as if in a pond of blue, red or white lotuses, in which the flowers born in the water, grown in the water, not growing out of the water, are fed from the water's depths, those blue, red or white lotuses would be suffused, etc., with the cool waters. So with this joy devoid of delight, the monk so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Again, a monk having given up pleasure and pain, and with the disappearance of former gladness and sadness, enters and remains in the fourth jhana, which is beyond pleasure and pain, and purified by equanimity and mindfulness, or you can also say with utter purity of equanimity and mindfulness. And he sits suffusing his body with that mental purity and clarification, so that no part of his body is untouched by it. Just as if a man were to sit wrapped from head to foot in a white garment, so that no part of him was untouched by that garment, so his body is suffused. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Let's stop here for a moment. So up to here, the Buddha is describing the charana. Charana is the practice of the holy life. Sometimes it's usually translated as conduct of the holy life. And here you notice how many items are given. 6 plus 4. 7 items are given. The first one is sila. Okay. And then the second one is guarding the sense doors. Third is mindfulness and clear awareness. Sati sampajanya. Fourth is contentment. Fifth is seclusion or solitary lodging. Sixth is abandoning the 5 hindrances. And then 7 is the 4 jhanas. So there are 7 items. So you find people like Lady Sayadaw in his book, he describes charana as 7 items. But if you look through other Nikayas, including the Majjhima and Sangyutta, Anguttara, you find there are 3 more items which a lot of learned monks have missed out. One is moderation in eating, Pojane Matanyutta. The second one is devotion to wakefulness, which is Jagarya Nuyoga. And the third is 7 good qualities, Satta Saddhamma, Saddha Hiri Otapa Bahu Satcha Virya Sati Panya. So the complete charana practice or conduct of the holy life is actually 10 items. Here is 7 items. Missing is moderation in eating, devotion to wakefulness, and 7 good qualities. Now we come to the second part, which is vijja. The Sammasambuddha is supposed to be perfectly endowed with conduct and knowledge and conduct. So just now we heard was conduct. Now we come to knowledge, vijja. And so with mind concentrated, purified and cleansed, unblemished, free from impurities, malleable, workable, established, and having gained imperturbability, he directs and inclines his mind towards knowing and seeing. And he knows, this my body is material, made up from the 4 great elements, born of mother and father, fed on rice and gruel, impermanent, liable to be injured and abraded, broken and destroyed. And this is my consciousness which is bound to it and dependent on it. It is just as if there were a gem, a beryl, pure, excellent, well cut into 8 facets, clear, bright, unflawed, perfect in every respect, strung on a blue, yellow, red, white or orange cord. A man with good eyesight, taking it in his hand and inspecting it, would describe it as such. In the same way, Sire, a monk with mind concentrated, purified and cleansed, etc., directs his mind towards knowing and seeing, and he knows, this my body is material, made up of the 4 great elements, etc., and this is my consciousness, which is bound to it and dependent on it. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. We'll stop here for a moment. So this is the first knowledge that this monk, after attaining the 4 jhanas, and his mind being very concentrated, purified, cleansed, malleable and wieldy, he directs it to this part is called vipassana jnana, contemplation knowledge. Contemplation knowledge. So you see here, vipassana means contemplation. It's not insight. Vipassana jnana means contemplation knowledge. He contemplates, he realizes this body, this self has a material part and consciousness. And he with mind concentrated, etc., having gained imperturbability, applies and directs his mind to the production of a mind-made body. And out of this body he produces another body, having a form, mind-made, complete in all its limbs and faculties. Just as if a man were to draw out a reed from its sheath, he might think, this is the reed, this is the sheath. Reed and sheath are different. Now the reed has been pulled from the sheath. Or as if a man were to draw a sword from the scabbard, he might think, this is the sword, this is the scabbard. Sword and scabbard are different. Now the sword has been drawn from the scabbard. Or as if a man were to draw a snake from its old skin, he might think, this is the snake, this is the skin. Snake and skin are different. Now the snake has been drawn from its skin. In the same way, a monk with mind concentrated, etc., directs his mind to the production of a mind-made body. He draws that body out of this body, having form, mind-made, complete with all its limbs and faculties. This is the fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Stop here, this for a moment. This is the second knowledge that he acquires. Because of having attained the fourth jhana, he is able to draw out from the top of his head another body. Sometimes in the suttas, described as a golden body. It looks exactly like the physical body. This is called Mano Maya Idi, mind-created body. It's a type of psychic power. Now we come to the third. And he with mind concentrated, etc., applies and directs his mind to the various supernormal powers. He then enjoys different powers. Being one, he becomes many. Being many, he becomes one. He appears and disappears. He passes through fences, walls and mountains unhindered, as if through air. He sinks into the ground and emerges from it as if it were water. He walks on water without breaking the surface, as if on land. He flies cross-legged through the sky like a bird with wings. He even touches and strokes with his hand the sun and moon, mighty and powerful as they are. And he travels in the body as far as the Brahma world. Just as a skilled potter or his assistant can make from well-prepared clay whatever kind of bowl he likes, or just as a skilled ivory carver or his assistant can produce from that well-prepared ivory any object he likes, or just as a skilled goldsmith or his assistant can make any gold article he likes, so the monk with mind concentrated, etc., enjoys various supernormal powers. This is a fruit of the homeless life. Stop here for a moment. This is the third knowledge he acquires. This is called psychokinesis. In Pali, is Idi Vida. These are the various types of psychic power, that he can multiply his body, he can appear and disappear, he can go through the wall, he can sink into the ground and come up, he can walk on water, he can fly through the air as far as the Brahma world. So you notice the human body, with the human body, a person with psychic power, the maximum he can fly with his human body is only up to the Brahma world, not higher. So he can even touch the sun and the moon. This type of psychic power nowadays, you cannot find. Sometimes certain cultivators, they might have one, they might have two, but not all these psychic powers like the Buddha and his Arahant disciples have. So the Buddha describes this as a fruit of the homeless life. So it is something that comes naturally, and it is something good, not like some people say that psychic powers are bad. It is bad if you don't have the Dhamma to support you, because people, if they don't understand the Dhamma, when they attain psychic power, their ego becomes very big, like Devadatta. So it's very important, the Buddha always says, when you practice the Eightfold Path, to attain right view first. If you don't attain right view, then you may go off the track, go wrong way like Devadatta. So it is always stressed that wrong view, the right view is the most important. If you don't have right view, you haven't entered the Noble Eightfold Path. So to enter the Noble Eightfold Path, you must start with right view. Then only it will lead you to the others. And right view in the suttas, in the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 43, it says there are two conditions for right view. One is the listening to the voice of another. Another person must teach you the Dhamma, the real Dhamma, the true Dhamma. Then you understand, that is the first condition. The second one is proper attention or careful attention. You pay proper attention, then only you can understand.